How did the characters in the Tale of Genji look as they went about their lives? What were their faces like? And how did they dress? In this session, we'll address these questions with a look at how people were illustrated in the 12th century of the Tale of Genji scrolls, an artwork that is a designated national treasure of Japan. The Tale of Genji was composed in the early part of the 11th century, which means that more than 100 years passed before the story was illustrated in the Tale of Genji scrolls. The images, therefore, cannot be taken as faithful representations of life at the time of the tale's original creation, but it is reasonable to assume that it was informed by a decent knowledge of how the 11th century nobility lived, especially when compared to Genji-inspired illustrations from the much later Edo period. Even so, we must be careful about what conclusions we draw from these illustrations, especially around the way people look. These illustrations are not necessarily informed by modern ideas of realism. Let's begin with a look at the Eastern Cottage 1 scene. Eastern Cottage is the 50th out of the 54 chapters in the Tale of Genji. In this scene, we see Ukifune, the last in a series of heroines in the Tale of Genji. She is staying at her half-sister's place, listening to her lady-in-waiting read aloud from a tale, while she appears to look at an illustrated scene from the tale being read to her. Of course, the Tale of Genji scrolls is itself a collection of illustrations from a tale, creating a kind of picture-in-picture nesting effect. We will return to this fascinating issue later. Now let's take a closer look at Ukifune's appearance. Her face is notably round, her eyes extremely narrow, and her nose is so tiny that it's almost hard to tell that she even has one. Was this the face of a great beauty among the nobles of the Heian period? There are many commentaries that say as much. But it's likely these commentaries are wrong. Drawing faces this way stems from a particular style of illustration. Let's look at the woman diagonally down and to the right from Ukifune. She is one of the ladies-in-waiting, but it almost looks like Ukifune's face and head were just lifted and moved elsewhere in the illustration. It's fair to call it a copy. In other words, there is nothing at all to distinguish between the faces of Ukifune and the woman to her lower right. This is not realism. Let's move on now to the scene Bamboo River 2 from the 44th chapter in the tale. This image depicts the noble daughters of the deceased Higekuro, Chancellor of the realm. The mother of the two girls, Tamakazura, is making various plans to see them married, but the sisters are busy with a game of go in the garden. The winner will earn the right to claim ownership of the cherry tree. When you look at this picture, who do you think are the noble sisters? The two women in the center of the picture are the most prominent. But these two women are not playing go. They are ladies-in-waiting. The sisters are on the left side of the illustration, shown with a game board between them. We see the back of one's head, and the other's face is hidden. Now have a look at the lower right part of this picture. A man is peering through a blind at the sisters. This is a common theme known as kaimami, or stealing a glimpse. The man is the Chamberlain lieutenant, a young noble in love with the older sister. He can see the ladies-in-waiting more clearly because they are closer to his hiding spot, but their mistresses, the sisters, would be difficult for the Chamberlain lieutenant to see. The picture is laid out to reproduce what the man peering in from the outside would actually be able to make out. We can also see that everyone in the picture, from the women sitting front and center to the chamberlain lieutenant peering through the gap, is rendered in the same style as the women we saw in the Eastern Cottage 1 illustration. Round faces, narrow eyes, extremely small noses. This particular style is known as hikime kakibana, or slit eyes and hooked nose, and is seen throughout the Tale of Genji scrolls.